noble hardwoods of the Miombo woodland, and specifically Mozambique, are being depleted at an absolutely terrifying pace. Last year when I was here, I explained a little bit of what has been happening in Mozambique and how unbelievable greed and unsound management practices have a situation where the National Management Plan allows for a maximum harvest of 500,000 cubic meters of noble hardwoods across all 200 or approximately 200 useful species, got perverted to the issuing of licenses for 960,000 cubic meters of timber and the landing of 2 million cubic meters in ports in China. This has resulted in massive political protest and in some cases mortal violence within Mozambique. It is not my purpose here today to point fingers and to blame, but to actually share with you one of the ways in which we can contribute to some of the solutions of that problem. Now, while most of our species are actually quite easy to grow back within the Miombo, they're very, very slow. The fastest of the useful species, Umbawa or Cyaneasica, and the taxonomists in the room will correct me because I believe they've changed the name once again. But I still use the ones which I learned at the beginning. It takes about 30 to 40 years to grow back a useful size. If you and the kaya is within the Miombo, just to give you an idea of the wealth and the usability of these timbers. The mahoganies are the bottom of our range. Okay, a mid-range timber would be what we call umbila or kiot, Pterocarpus angolensis. That's considered one of the Hongmu species in China and takes between 80 and 100 years to reach a usable size. Palpreto, or African blackwood, umpingo, which is Dalbergia melanoxylon, between 200 and 300 years to reach usable dimensions. And Monzo or leadwood, the Combretum imberbe, which is greatly sought after, from 500 to 1200 years. Now, even if we're able to plant back all of those trees, and at Mozambique we plant back quite a lot, and to re-establish all of those forests, it is going to be many, many generations before we can return to some form of sustainable supply. But in the meantime, we've got to do something, and we've got to have wood that we can use for basic local purposes. One of the solutions, which we discussed last time when I was here, was the idea that you add value on site with the local people, that they gain greater skill and greater income from the resource. Okay, they climb up the value chain substantially, and that gives them the incentive to participate in the conservation and restoration efforts. So if you look at it here's just some of the products which we do and some of the ideas that we are playing with in terms of added value. That is a timber mapani, that's Calophosperma mapani, highly sought after in China. That's the Pterocarpus. That tree is much bigger than a 100-year-old tree. It's probably about 150. Using offcuts to make educational toys for kids. A whole range of species there. Some of the traditional crafts which we've decided to restore because they really are quite spectacular. This is packaging for solid perfume, which goes from Mozambique to Paris. And those are made of offcuts of Mozambique, which is the yellow one, and Palpreto Dalbergia, which is the black one, from the production of musical instruments. Okay, some architectural use. Furniture, wood turning, more wood turning. And then just the odd, really special plank which gets turned into something very nice. So what we're doing is adding value. Okay, now the other solution that we have is to try and find an alternative and to try and look at what we can do in order to replace what are basic things that we have always required. We discovered in Mozambique there is a massive resource of approximately 5 million hectares of coconuts. Those have been extremely badly managed. They are moribund in most cases or diseased. In order to actually replace these, and if anyone knows anything about coconuts, and I'm sure there are a couple of us in the room who are familiar with them, that's a really sorry looking plantation. There is, however, a requirement to provide an incentive for local communities to cut their old moribund trees down because people are so poor. Bear in mind, Mozambique is the third from the bottom in terms of wealth in the world. So the guys at the bottom of the range, if a tree is producing more than 2 or 3 coconuts, he doesn't want to get rid of it because 2 or 3 coconuts is a lot more than none. So we have to actually provide some incentive to make sure that that is done. On the 14th of June, which happens to be St. Anthony's Day, which if there are any Catholics in the room will enjoy the significance of that, because St. Anthony is the patron saint of lost causes. On the 14th of June 2013, Mozambique Forest Centre acquired 300 hectares of coconut plantation in an absolutely horrible condition from a Catholic mission who were unable to manage it. It had been nationalized roughly 40 years ago. About a third of the trees have already been lost. About the same amount are moribund and only a third are marginally productive. We set ourselves the task of cleaning out the invasive plants, establishing a sustainable and certified organic coconut agriculture, also to establish a viable coconut product industry, mainly oils, both copra oil and virgin coconut oil, then to remove the dead and moribund trees and use the biomass in a productive way, and to expand the practice of sustainable coconut agriculture into local community to achieve a commercial critical mass at round about 1,000 hectares. We also discovered that in this area there were no skills available. All of those during the time when the industry was nationalized had degraded, and given that that's 40 years, that's the average or the lifespan of any working person. So there really was nobody left from the days when these things functioned. And we decided to convert our operation not only to a commercial operation which would experiment with and produce coconut products, but at the same time form a coconut school. For those of us from Southern Africa, I don't know, calling someone a coconut is rather rude. I'm not going to talk about the production of oils or soaps or any of the other coconut products, but would rather concentrate on the piece of coconut timber which is fairly unique to us and the process by which we have actually taken coconuts and taken a bunch of people and started to build this training facility, and at the same time as building it using the construction process as our experimentation and as our training. So it's quite fun. Let's start with cutting down a tree. When we fell a tree, we don't cut the tree down and then try and pull out the root. The roots have to be extracted because if they rot in the ground, they will form the breeding space for coconut predators, such as the rhinoceros beetle. So we actually dig the tree out, push it over, and then we cut it to length. So you can see the big root bowl there and a couple of logs. A plank, when we started, we pit sawed because we didn't have any other choice. That's just one of the logs marked out for pit sawing. Very rough sawn timber, being heaped up, controlled. Obviously, if you're in our part of the world, you get invaded by dogs. And we started to actually build our own facilities. If you look at this here, these people have never built anything other than daub and wattle houses for themselves before. This is the first time anybody had seen a spirit level, anybody had seen a square, and anybody had a handsaw that they didn't pinch from somebody. So this is us with our very first piece of construction. Had to teach them how to make scaffolding, had to teach them how to put up a pole. The idea of a spirit level was quite magical to everybody. They thought this was the most amusing thing, that you could make something straight. Straight and square and plumb was not in the previous vocabulary. making a truss was also something which was completely new and magical to people, that you could actually advance technology from a beam to a truss was quite a big deal in this setting. There you can see the whole thing actually being worked out. Okay. At the same time as actually erecting that, we started to play with the idea of prefabricating these. So we moved some of the timber to Mozambique, where we do have real equipment and real things, planed the timber, cleaned it up, and prefabricated a shed. And that's the shed. So we decided we would start with some panel construction, which would be one of the cash earners for this project later on, because there's a tremendous amount of development in natural gas in Mozambique. With that, tons and tons and tons of temporary housing for site officers, temporary people working there. So that's our first little prefab building, and using the entire coconut to build it. So the only non-coconut item in that are screws. The roof is the leaves, it's all woven, it's all tied together with coconut product. And that's sort of, as the thing has grown, you can see we're a bit sort of green. There's a nice solar cooker there, live fencing going in, some little solar panels for lighting. And with that, let me just take a break from the first construction. So one of the things we built were nurseries. Now, in the process of building nurseries, we obviously have nurseries for coconuts. In addition to that, we have some quite sophisticated agroforestry treatment of the land around the coconuts in order to make sure that we can manage water and manage nutrition for the trees properly. Healthy trees obviously will give you healthy product. So now you've got these guys able to work entirely on their own in setting up and building houses. So all those trusses were made with minimal supervision at this stage. And then we start trading with woodwork. The other slightly revolutionary thing that I've done is I employ women. And then run through this, and this is all what we're doing with the solid wood. Now there you'll see something interesting, are those big round bulbous goodies. Those are the roots of coconut that have been cleaned up. So while we're looking at the woodwork training, and we're about to enter into the phase of doing furniture, we're not yet there because we've only been around for a year and a half. It takes quite a long while to teach people how to do things. I'm going to race through these so that we can fit the time. Some of the product that we're doing, we're packaging oil. This is oil which is being exported, virgin oil, and then you can see we pack it in crates in order to freight it. And that's all made of coconut. This is another interesting thing where we decided to build another building. If you look at the background, all of that woodwork, it's a different project, is coconut, and also able to be produced at very low intensity. The insulated ceiling of that building is low density coconut. Back to when we fell the tree. The root comes out, okay, gets cleaned up, and gets cleaned up some more, and more. And then we gradually work these into a number of products. These are very large wooden planters, which are used in patios. They've become a big fashion rage very, very quickly. Last year at Design in Daba, we won the Innovation Award for this product. One of the neighbor's kids. Okay, and one of the things you'll notice is an absolutely unique patterning on that. The next thing we did is, if you look at the structure of the root, is where the roots are broken, we started to look at substituting, and what's quite fun here is if you look at that, the bowl, on the round bowls, which are turned, are made with a case in a grandsons. And we're putting into competition with those at an even higher price, because obviously this is tremendously unique stuff. You're very privileged to have one of these, so you overpay. Coconut bowls. And what I'd like to do is give you one of these and compare the original of the hardwood. So that's a coconut bowl, and those are flatwood. So you get some idea of what you're substituting for. The idea is that we build skills and we build an ability to use these, and we're substituting them into the same galleries where we are selling high-value stuff. In September last year, this piece was taken by, it was a piece made partly by myself and by one of my apprentices, and is in a museum in South Africa. So it took us literally 15 months to go from nobody knowing anything about how to deal with coconuts to training people to actually winning design prizes and getting product into museums. That's the commercial end of that particular product. And then we go back to the construction where we now have built up and started to mechanize. So there you can see one of our little prefab houses. It's our switching station. Just to give you a little break from all this coconut bullshit, that's lunch. From the beach right next to the coconut plantation. Okay? And there we're building a sawmill. And we have taken a machine which is a standard machine from Canada, and we've played with it. And really all we needed to do was adjust the set of the blade and the angle of sharpening. Other than that, it's from cutting hardwoods to cutting coconut, a very easy adaptation. Some of the product, some of the buildings we've been asked to build, and then the last thing is what a happy coconut tree looks like.